The committee urged government not to place a deadline in the Constitution through that amendment. The government, however, sir, ignored the committee on this matter. As a result, ours is the only constitution with a deadline in it. It is sensible not to place deadlines in constitutions, Mr. Speaker. Thirdly, sir, because a deadline was set in the Constitution, a further constitutional amendment is now required to postpone it. Any further delay, for whatever reason, will then require a further constitutional amendment to further postpone it. Sir, financial and administrative exigencies may force a further postponement. It is not outside the realm of possibility. It is highly likely. It appears, sir, as if we are trifling with the Constitution. The committee has recommended, sir, that the bill be amended to remove the deadline entirely. Fourthly, Mr. Speaker, the Constituent Assembly is a mechanism to bring to conclusion the proposed draft federal constitution. It is important, sir, that the process be brought to a final decision. It's taken us a very long time, and we've invested millions of dollars in it. However, sir, for various reasons, there is a huge disconnect between the expectations of our people and what is actually contained in the final draft federal constitution, which is very detailed and prescriptive and proposes what is likely to be very costly to maintain. It is therefore likely, Mr. Speaker, that the Assembly will reject it in its current form. It almost appears, sir, as if the final draft federal constitution is being deliberately doomed to fail simply because it is unrealistic and unaffordable. This, Mr. Speaker, presents a problem for our country. Fifthly, sir, it is important as a guiding thought to appreciate that a constitution, as the foundational law that governs the political and legal system and the relationship between the people and the state, ought to be flexible and general enough to cater for evolving dynamic situations. Therefore, a detailed prescriptive constitution is likely doomed to failure for lack of compliance. Further, a constitution that is based on ideas of separation and turf-mindedness is not good for our country. Sixthly, Mr. Speaker, the composition of the Constituent Assembly seems dominated by Honiara. This is a real problem and perpetuates the attitude that Honiara dictates to the provinces. In other jurisdictions, Mr. Speaker, sovereign states come together to federate and thereby give up some of their sovereignty to the federal center. In our case, the center needs to give up powers to the states. It is therefore important, sir, that the majority membership of the Assembly be comprised of representatives of the provinces. In turn, Mr. Speaker, the composition of the provincial delegations be prescribed to include women, youth, and a diversity of voices. But as a matter of principle, sir, it should be the provincial delegations that comprise the majority of the Assembly's composition. Members of Parliament should be included in their provincial delegations. The other equally important principle to note, sir, is that elected representatives ought to form the majority of the delegations to the Assembly. We're a democracy, and elections represent the will of the people, however ambiguous or tenuous that may be perceived. Further, Mr. Speaker, the legitimacy of a new constitution will be derived from its ownership by all the provinces. Therefore, it is important that it is supported in the voting mechanisms by a majority in each of the provinces' delegations. If it is only supported in some provinces but not in others, then we could be heading for problems, sir. Voting rights in the Assembly, sir, ought to reflect this important feature. Seventh, Mr. Speaker, there is no need for technical experts to be members of the Assembly. They are, Mr. Speaker, important voices and must be heard. Their technical expertise will be sorely needed and appreciated, but there is no need to allocate voting power to them solely on the basis of their expertise, Mr. Speaker. Representation must be the defining criteria for membership. When technical experts are given voting rights, sir, this perpetuates the Honiara-centric approach to governance since independence that has largely neglected the provinces. Eighth, Mr. Speaker, representation by civil society groups, including the trade unions, Chamber of Commerce, Council of Women, Bar Association, Youth Congress, SICA, SIVGA, is great indeed, but are likely going to be Honiara-based individuals, the vast majority of them. These are important voices, but Honiara is likely to have a disproportionate voice in the Assembly. Ninth, Mr. Speaker, there are a number of prerequisite steps that must be taken before the Assembly is convened. The financing and costing of the final draft federal constitution is one such, and perhaps the most important. We were told a few years ago, sir, that a Canadian expert was undertaking this task. In fact, we allocated some funds to cover his costs some years ago, but now we are informed the task is still outstanding. That exercise, sir, will require funding and time. And given the government's precarious cash flow situation, sir, it is not prudent to defer this matter to the period the Assembly sits. Prerequisite matters, Mr. Speaker, that will enable decision-making by the Assembly ought to be completed before it is convened. The Assembly, Mr. Speaker, ought to have everything it needs, including information and advice, to enable its decision-making to be efficient in reaching a conclusion. Sir, those are the observations I have to offer this morning. These, sir, would require a significant redrafting of the bill currently before the House. I therefore, sir, support the committee's recommendation that the bill be withdrawn for further work. Parliament should not be overly concerned, say, about the deadline. When government is ready and has addressed these policy issues, Parliament can then better deal with legislation to give effect to the changes with a confident expectation, sir, that the process can progress and a final decision on the proposed draft federal constitution can be reached efficiently, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Leader of Opposition. Any